be honest with me, okay? You don't have to pretend. Would you feel comfortable knowing that you have a doctor who's treating you for, I don't know, let's say a trauma incident, and they are a vehement anti-Semite and anti-Zionist? Like, vehement. They hate Israel. They celebrate October 7th. They love the Palestinians so much that they believe that Zionists shouldn't have a right to exist. Yada, yada, yada. How would you feel about that if you discovered that that was your doctor? Well, that's currently the case happening in England under the NHS. This doctor by the name of Rahme Aladwan, okay? She's a female, she's practicing, she's trying to become a trauma, orthopedic specialist, etc. She has been tweeting a lot. And as you know, the UK has a bit of a problem at the moment with free speech, which I'm massively against. I don't think that people should be punished for what they have to say. However, I do think that if people are comfortable really celebrating violence or saying really bad things about a certain group of people, then if those people are in positions, let's say, of responsibility, like a doctor or a teacher, then there will be ramifications to those actions. And that is exactly what's going on right now. This woman, Rahme Aladwan, has been posting insane things online. We've got them all documented. Don't worry, we'll review that in a second. And when people caught wind of this, namely Stop Anti-Semitism, she was faced with a formal investigation by the UK medical regulator called the GMC, the General Medical Council. Okay, she was referred then to a tribunal over concerns over her public statements and whether they made her unfit to practice. In September, okay, just a month ago, it was decided that she was fit to continue practicing. Okay, her statements did not clearly demonstrate a risk to patients or public confidence in the profession at the moment. Okay, so this is a story back a few weeks ago. Her posts, her tweets are a little bit nuts, okay? They're a little bit anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli, and people got a little bit upset about that. And so they sent her for a tribunal. And by the way, in America, this is happening left, right, and center, right? We're seeing doctors and professors and teachers getting fired for saying anti-Charlie Kirk statements, anti-Israel statements, statements that basically make you think, you know, should this person be in a position of responsibility? That's something that I'm not exactly sure about. But in the UK, it's getting more complicated. Why? Because the pro-Palestinians have obviously jumped on this and are using this as an opportunity to prove to the world how the Israeli supremacists control everything, including the NHS. Okay? No, this is not a rational question of if you have a doctor who says things like celebrating October 7th, then maybe that shouldn't be someone who treats, I don't know, potentially Jews, because there are lots of Jews in the UK. But rather, this is about how Israel exerts control. And why are they saying that? Well, because now she was she was arrested by the Metropolitan Police Service under suspicion for inciting racial hatred and malicious communications and misuse of public communications network. Let's watch the video of her arrest, which is obviously mega viral on Twitter.
And what power?
US pound.
And what? Sorry?
She's under arrest.
Why?
You're under arrest for 4 offences. Malicious communication sounds free, and for inciting racial hatred. I will explain to you everything. I just need to get cut on you because, like I said, I don't know what is in the house. So, Section 1 of the Malicious Communication Act and Section 127 of the Misuse of Public Communications Network. Again, on the 21st of July, at a pro-Palestine protest, which took place outside the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in King Charles Street, he gave a speech which amounts to calls for the eradication of Israel and implied support for all those involved in armed resistance against Israel.
And what? Israel? For Israel, the entity of Israel, the state. Israel, another place?
Sorry.
I thought it's for the UK.
And implied support for all of those involved in armed resistance against Israel.
No.
Including organisations such as Hamas. Again, like
I was in front of the police when I gave that
You
speech.
say that this is what you're doing for Israel.
We're Palestinians,
We're not going to talk about
and we've
Israel
had
now.
our family members and friends murdered. Are you doing this for Israel?
we're not to MP where treating comments that could be interpreted as anti-Semitic,
Towards these treating.
including anti-Semitic tropes, which could be considered grossly offensive.
Okay, I'm going to pause this for a second because what she's saying here is important. Not only is the police telling her all the reasons, but she's like, I'm sorry, you're doing this for Israel, you're doing this on behalf of Israel. No, that's not what's happening. They're saying, the police are saying, you are supporting an armed resistance, i.e. terrorism, against Israel, and we have problem with any form of terrorism against, honestly, any country. It's not just about Israel. To which she's then responding saying, wait a second, they murdered all of my friends and my families, I'm a Palestinian, yada, yada, yada. I should be able to say something and speak about that. And I think we have to understand that this is like the baseline of this conversation that we're seeing across, and why the other side are so convinced that they're correct, because they literally believe that Israel is a terrorist state. That is their belief. And they think right now that because she's being arrested for supporting a terror organization and armed resistance against Israel and believing that Israel shouldn't exist, yada, 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 that therefore that is the same, okay? Israel is the same as Hamas. They look at that as the same thing. They look at Israel as a terrorist organization. So the fact that the West, the UK, is doing something for a terrorist organization in their head is insane, in the same way that it is crazy to us that a doctor out there is supporting Hamas and the Palestinians and an armed resistance against Israel, okay? It's a really important mind switch to make, because if you don't get it, you don't understand why these people are so nuts.
Character. On the 7th of October, you posted a variety of communications which demonstrated support for Hamas attack on Israel. An attack which involved murder, rape and kidnap of Israeli citizens, all of which may be considered grossly offensive in character.
So she's basically saying to her, you supported October 7th, and we have a problem with that because you're a doctor. And if you supported October 7th and you're also a doctor, what's going to happen if you have, I don't know, an Israeli patient? Are you going to be able to treat them correctly? Again, I'm not for the arresting people for the things that they say. I think you should just fire them. But here, it's interesting. Like, that's a real question that we have to ask ourselves. If you have a doctor who supported October 7th, should that person be treating people? Who has to treat everybody? I mean, what we've had in Israel is totally nuts. The fact that we've had IDF soldiers having to treat terrorists, right? Like, medics need to treat terrorists. That's a whole different question for another time. But that's the story of what's going on. And we can watch this video. She gets very, very upset, yada, yada, yada. It's very interesting. Now, what then happens? She gets arrested and she's taken to another tribunal. But this is what she wears when she comes to the tribunal. Does that look to you like a 7 and an O? I mean, it's a very random necklace, don't you think? So she comes to the tribunal wearing this necklace, and she's basically saying, screw you, October 7th is something to be celebrated. So whilst we're going to go into her tweets, and I think we can debate to no end if they're tweets that are bad enough to have a doctor arrested or not, what we can see here is that she is not backing down and she's not ashamed. In fact, it's the opposite. She's now becoming the form of resistance, okay? She's becoming this new martyr, the woman who might lose her medical license, not because she's clearly racist towards a massive group of population in the UK, but rather because she fought for the Palestinian cause. And that's the irony. The irony is they'll be like, oh, Israel's making you do this. That's the twist. They're making this sound like Israel is manipulating the UK, whereas actually the Palestinians are manipulating the UK. Let's look for a second at some of her tweets, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Oh, goodness. Okay. Glory to the resistance. Glory to the resistance. That's statement number 1, okay? The orthopedic doctor social media account is filled with horrifying posts relating to Hamas, an anti-Semitic genocidal terror organization, calls for the erasure of the Jewish state, and other incendiary posts relating to anti-Semitism. Let's read them. Okay. Glory to the resistance. Tweet number 1. What do you guys think? Is this a bad thing or is this an okay thing? Glory to the resistance. Next. Let's make this clear for 2025. These are all screenshots of her posts, yeah? The Thawabit Palestinian red lines are non-negotiable. Israel is not a country. It's a genocidal Zionist colony that has no right to exist. Resistance, including armed struggle, is an honor. Armed struggle is an honor. There are 2 million Muslims in the world, and never shows their shortcoming, blah, blah, blah. Zionists must denounce their Israeli citizenship and call for a one democratic state, Palestinian, if they want to have a say. Really, that's interesting. Okay. So when somebody calls her Johnny UTD, FX1 Johnny, he tweets, be honest, in the context of Israel in 2025, does it bother you if you're accused of anti-Semitism? Nope. Thanks to the Zionist lobby, it has become a badge of honor. Okay, so she wears anti-Semitism as a badge of honor. Anyone who hasn't been falsely accused hasn't done enough. Okay, she's falsely been accused for being an anti-Semite. Let's continue. The people on the side that had to defame and libel healthcare workers are not the good guys. Zionism is a cesspit of hate. Free Palestine. What does Free Palestine mean? Zionism out of the NHS. Does that mean that every Zionist patient that comes to her care should be freed? You know what I'm saying? Well, what does that mean? How far does this go? A picture of Al-Qassam, a terrorist organization, yeah, a day, keeps the Zionists locked away. That's interesting. That's an interesting tweet. Okay, she's supporting Dan Bilzerian. Okay. Don't tell me that they haven't been forced to smile like this. That's not so nice. That's about the hostages. The Qassam Brigades are the pride of Gaza. That's a terrorist organization. Now, I just want you to flip it. Like, imagine that this wasn't Hamas, this was ISIS. Just for a second, okay? Imagine this wasn't Hamas, this was ISIS. And we're just going to keep this picture here because I think it's an important reminder of who we're talking about. We're not talking about Hamas, we're not talking about Israel, we're just talking about ISIS. And you have somebody, a doctor in America, tweeting things saying like, oh, ISIS is the resistance. Yeah, good for ISIS. Glory to ISIS. And when October 7th comes, they're like, or when, I don't know, 9/11 happened, they're like, yeah, finally, show those Americans. Would you have a doctor like that operating on you? Would you have her treating you? Would you feel comfortable about that? And that's the current debate. That is the current conversation being had in the UK. Again, she has managed to flip this into making her like the face of the resistance. Look at me. I'm fighting for the Palestinians. The Israelis are just trying to shut us down. And they managed to tell this whole story. It's literally like Israel is controlling the NHS. When she shows up to the tribunal wearing an October 7th celebratory necklace, like mine. I've got a beautiful Magen David. I decided to start wearing my Magen David recently. I got this from my friend Rachel Schnee. You should check her out. But this is not an advertisement. This is about the October 7th necklace. What do you guys think? Is this right? Should doctors be celebrating massacres? Now, again, remember the flip argument of this, and this is where it starts to get complicated, is that they would say that if you're a Zionist, you're celebrating the murder of Palestinians, so then you can't be a doctor. Right? If you celebrate what's going on in Gaza, which none of us celebrate it actually, particularly, it's not exactly a celebration. We're relieved, I think, but I don't think it's a celebration. Where do the lines get drawn? Should police be arresting people like this? Should doctors be allowed to say what they want on social media, or should they be censored? I happen to think that we shouldn't be censoring them at all because I want to know if my doctor believes these kind of things. But were these statements bad enough? Are these statements an indicator as to what she really truly feels about Zionists? Or is it because she didn't say something like, oh, I would, literally kill one, therefore it's not considered real hatred? Is Israel really controlling the NHS? All these are important questions, and we'll be following this case closely because, as we know, the UK is semi-fallen, and we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that Europe just doesn't become Islamist. I don't know if we can still do it. I don't know how far we've fallen, but this is going to be a very, very important indicator to the future. What is really, really going to go down and what is going to happen. And if doctors who hate the Jews and the Israeli people are going to allow to continue to be doctors. Thank you for your attention to this matter.